We are joined now by our Senior Counsel for Global Affairs, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. And Secretary Pompeo, I saw the announcement. I was in the car this morning on the way to the office when you were on Fox and Friends. A new book. It's available to pre-order right now. It's called Never Give an Inch, Fighting for the America I Love, Untold Stories About Your Time as CIA Director and Secretary of State. Tell people a little bit about it. Of course, we encourage them to pre-order the book now.
Thanks, Jordan. Yes, you can go get Never Give an Inch pre-ordered on MikePompeo.com. And Jordan, it tells the story from my perspective. I was the only senior national security person who made it all 4 years in the Trump administration. It tells the story about how we literally every day put the American people first. And so I talk about the things that I did, the way that I interacted with President Trump, how we executed and implemented that America First foreign policy in a way that I think we can all see pretty clearly now was really good for the American people compared to what President Biden's foisting upon us today.
I don't want to give all the book away, but I think one of those topics that was especially unique to your time as Secretary of State, just for the world, was the interaction with North Korea. And we just saw the Biden administration make an approach to North Korea after they've been shooting off more and more rockets, causing alarm to our allies. They tried to make that approach as much as they tried to mock what you all did on the Trump administration. They tried to make that similar approach of a bilateral, nothing's off the table, no strings attached meeting. And the North Koreans said no, which it was interesting to me is that they feel like they're in a position of enough strength to blow off the United States of America.
It's pretty remarkable to watch the North Koreans reject the opportunity to engage with American leadership. They clearly don't have the same concerns that they had when we were in office, which was that we would take serious action to make things more difficult for them. They must view the administration as being pretty weak. You know, Jordan, it's a story oft told, right? So now you have Chairman Kim that refuses to talk to him. The Saudis refuse to take his phone call. I can't tell, but it doesn't appear there are serious efforts to be talking to Vladimir Putin about the costs we're going to impose on him. This is a pattern in practice, and it is really, if you're living somewhere in Idaho or Texas or Florida, this is a really perilous moment in American history, and we have a president that doesn't appear to be able to engage with those folks that are trying to do America harm.
To go to another one of those, the people who are picking up the phone, and they are answering the call of the United States and the Biden administration, whether it's Iran, but I want to focus some attention on Venezuela as well, which has been done. They work very closely with Iran, and there's a lot of Iranian agents based out of Venezuela, bad actors. And you tweeted out that, quote, energy independence doesn't just mean lower costs for Americans. It also means not having to beg Venezuelan dictators or the Iranian regime for more oil. Of course, OPEC announced their big cut, 2 million barrels a day. But then Venezuela is responding. I mean, unfortunately, that's who is picking up the phone saying, oh, yeah, great. You want to take the sanctions off and let Chevron go back in. And they welcome that there, of course.
So it's true. It sounds like there's conversations between the administration and Maduro, who has caused more harm. It's one of the greatest catastrophes, not war-based, in the world's history, right? Now 20% of the Venezuelan population living in displaced or had left the country already. And they bought that, right? They said, hey, look, if you'll talk to us, we'll lift sanctions in exchange for almost nothing for the United States of America. It is cataclysmically bad idea to think that you're going to run the country on sunshine and windmills, and you're going to leave these fossil fuels in America, the self-help that Americans need for our national security and for affordable energy, that you're going to leave that in the ground and you're going to put crazy rules, ESG stuff, all on top of the American energy industry that can create so much prosperity, so much security, and so many jobs here in the United States as well. Instead, you're going to tell Maduro, no, you pump it.
Yeah, I mean, that Secretary Pompeo, that gets to kind of like back when we were talking about North Korea. Do you think they say no to this kind of like no conditions because they say, listen, everybody else is getting something in return for taking your phone call and sitting down with you. So why would we just go sit down with you if you're not willing to lift sanctions on us or do this or that? Because if for goodness sakes, if the Venezuelan dictator is getting that, then maybe we should get something in return for even taking your call.
I think that's absolutely true. The best example of that's the Iranians. We have now offered them billions, if not tens of billions of dollars in exchange for conversations. And frankly, they think they can get more. We've offered them all kinds of things to get back in this deal, and the Iranians continue to say no to our yes. It is a feckless response from the United States of America when the Iranian people are trying to do the right thing for themselves. For the United States to now give them a clear pathway to a nuclear weapon is precisely the kind of thing that the Iranians and now the Venezuelans, the Chinese and the Russians, all of whom, Jordan, are part of the the President Bush called it the axis of evil. But these are folks that are working together, right? The Iranians shipping drones to Russia today. They are of a kind, and our response has been of a kind too. Too weak, too short, and too slow.
This is a point I want to keep hammering to folks so they understand, because, and especially when they're talking to friends and family, we're 29 days from the midterm elections. You're all over the country for good conservative candidates, and everybody's out there talking up the issues. And when they talk about gas price, they talk about inflation. We see this use of the strategic oil reserve for almost. I mean, I'm not afraid to say it's a use for partisan politics. It's not there, and even if we weren't in an election cycle, it's not there to bring down prices. It's there for strategic needs during a time of war. But I think it's a message people have to understand. Like, why is that reserve important, and why we shouldn't really be tapping that because of inflation?
Jordan, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is exactly that. Its purpose is to have energy stored underground in the United States of America in the case that we have a conflict and we need it and can't get energy from someplace else. Barrels a day, I don't want to say how many, it's supposed to be classified, but big reserves and big stocks. What it's not supposed to be used to do is to buy votes by trying to keep the price of gas down when you've decided to adopt the Green New Deal lock, stock, and barrel. And that's what they've done. And that it is now as low as I think it's been in 40 years. The levels are as low as they've been in 40 years. It hasn't done anything to impact the price. I think crude's at $90 a barrel plus today. It is a failure of American policy, and most importantly, puts us at risk if we actually need that product for what the Strategic Petroleum Reserve was originally intended to do.
Final question today, Secretary Pompeo. I want to go to take it to New York, the border issue, because the New York Mayor Eric Adams has actually declared it wasn't over the crime there, but over the immigration and just the fact that I think it's 17,000 people, which for a city the size of New York, you would think would not be a state of emergency. But it's interesting to see, because he tweeted back a few years ago, New York is always going to stand up to Donald Trump, and we are the place to come for immigrants as well, the ultimate, which, so he plays that up. And now you see liberals, once they kind of feel what it's like to be a little bit, I mean, it's just a taste for New York. 17,000 people can be pretty easily kind of disappear into the city that size. And yet they're declaring state of emergencies over it. Do you think, is it politics, or do you think they really just are finally getting a taste of what it's like to have these kind of mass influx of people that you might not be prepared for?
It's remarkable how they foisted this upon the people of California and Arizona and Texas and my home state of Kansas. And now that there's just a little bit of cost to them, they are screaming bloody murder and demanding that this stop and declaring a state of emergency. The border is the perfect place. My book is called Never Give an Inch. This is the place that we understood that you had to protect American sovereignty. And I hope that Mayor Adams in New York City is finally seeing that the Trump administration had this right, that remain in Mexico made sense, that we were prepared to fight for the America that we love in a way that actually preserved and protected the great things about our republic. It's incomprehensible to me that 17,000 people could really be causing as much trouble as Mayor Adams has described, and to declare an emergency after so many other places have been through so much for so long because of the failed Biden policies is truly, truly outrageous.
All right, folks, I want you to go to MikePompeo.com and get our Senior Counsel for Global Affairs, pre-order his new book, Never Give an Inch, Fighting for the America I Love.